What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday. Today we're going to be talking about something that has been troubling me for a while, but I do have a disclaimer. This was supposed to be a roundtable discussion from Skullfest, which just went off this past weekend and was a great time. Thank you to everybody that attended. Thank you. There was a great time. Plenty of stuff about Skullfest on the Patreon. The bad news is I lost some of the footage from Skullfest due to a computer issue. It's my fault. I take responsibility. Live and learn. I should have had contingencies with how sensitive and one-of-a-kind sort of that footage was. As a result, we had a roundtable discussion that was lost. So I'm going to be doing it a bit more one-sided, but at the end I will include some counterpoints that I remember off the top of my head in order to kind of put it in. I apologize to everybody that sat in for that discussion that won't get to see it live. Hopefully it was a fulfilling enough discussion just have in person, but otherwise I feel like I wasted everybody's time, and for that I do apologize. But first, house cleaning stuff. The 4 Dummies Tecora. A lot of people were like, why didn't you mention the movie stuff? And the reason why is because that is not just a Tecora endeavor. That's a Tecora and Hasbro joint endeavor. So I can't grade it on the same scale. It's not doing the same thing. The money isn't being allocated the same way. The steps of the process aren't being conceived in the same way. It's a different beast. And honestly, I think that's all we have to do. So let's get into this today. This is going to be a good discussion. There's been something going on in the fandom that I've noticed, and I haven't been able to put my finger on why, and it's been troubling me. Like, it's really been bothering me because I don't understand it, and I want to understand it. Not everybody in this is going to see all of the products the same way, and that's perfect. That's great, actually. I love going to see people's collections and it's not identical to mine. I love seeing how the choices are different and how that affects the display. From time to time, I even make changes, like recently going to JD's house and seeing how he had his lightsabers. I completely ripped off his idea, and now I have mine very similarly. But that's the beauty of this, right? We exchange ideas and what works and what doesn't work and all that stuff. So I like the uniqueness. I'm okay with people having different opinions and all that stuff. But what I am finding more and more troubling is this inconsistency I'm seeing in regard to Fanstoys. People say I don't do it enough, so I was trying to go hard for a little extra one. And for me, this comes down to 3 things. There's 3 things that I've been seeing that have been more and more consistent as a criticism regarding this company that I'm not seeing being applied to other pieces across the board within the same scale or within the same price range. And that's what I find troubling, and that's what I find curious and perplexing, you might say. This isn't my first rodeo. I've been covering third party for 5 years. I've watched the waves. I know how this thing goes, but this one is something unique that I haven't quite ever seen before. So let me break this down. I think that there are criticisms regarding Fanstoys that are 100% on the money. When I see people saying how they can't stand some of their transformation elements, how it drives them nuts, how you shouldn't need to use 3 or 4 tools to get a piece to move for the first time, etc., 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 I'm like, dude, I'm with you. When I hear people say, I hate how sometimes when you go through the transformation it damages the paint, dude, I'm with you. I hear people say, I hate how they put out this Jetfire and then they put out the Jetfire again with the paint that they thought that we wanted, but it ended up that wasn't the paint that we wanted. It ended up being some kind of extra paint that no one actually wanted. I'm like, dude, I hear you. And I think a lot of those criticisms can be applied consistently to every other third-party company, some more than others, some more heavier than others, right? This one might have it a little bit, this one has it a lot, etc., etc. This piece seems out of the normal for this particular company, but it gets this extra criticism with it, or whatever, what have you. It all makes sense. Now let me talk about some things that don't make sense to me. And we're going to begin with unreleased products. So Fanstoys often gets a hard time for a history of unreleased products, of which they are guilty of. Let's take a look at them. The first one was the Soundwave. The Soundwave, in my opinion, they got cold feet because the Tecora one was coming and they got scared to death being a new company and they just scrapped it. They also had a blaster coming to back that up. For a lot of people, that's strike 1 and 2 regarding this company. However, imagine the landscape at the time. When Shockwave came out, he was like $150. That was crazy expensive for Masterpiece figures at the time. Now you see figures like Hound coming out for $160. So the price market has changed. But at the time, a new company releasing a Soundwave going head to head with one of Tecora's strongest releases in history at Tecora's prime, I think it would have been a poor choice. I think they probably made the smart choice in scrapping it, but they could have probably gotten away with that blaster. Either way, strike 1. Now the next one doesn't get a full strike, but we got a tease of a Jetfire way early on, and it took years for that thing to come out. They obviously fulfilled their obligations. However, it helped solidify the reputation of this company teasing things and not releasing. So we won't call it a strike, but but we'll call it a foul ball that doesn't count as a strike. And then we have the big two, Trailbreaker, Blitzwing. We have no clue what's going on with these. So we have three that people often quote as the unreleased products from Fanstoys. Now granted, they've teased a ton of stuff that we haven't got, but most of us I think have our fingers crossed that a majority of those releases will see the light of day. But I'm going to remind you real quick of a fourth release that never came out. We got a silhouette of Scourge. Many don't bring this one up, but if I'm being objective, it's one that they teased that we never got. Now the counter argument to that is that their Cyclonus and Galvatron were supposed to scale fairly accurately with the KFC XTrans bots offering. And maybe that's the case, but that's not the impression I got. However, they once showed a silhouette of a Devastator, which I do 100% believe intention-wise was to show the audience that it would scale with Toy World's constructor. So I'm not counting that one either. So we have four major infractions, and that's with me counting this Scourge that I can think of. Possible that I forgot one or two. I'm willing to accept that. And they get a lot of grief for that, and perhaps rightfully so. I, for one, really want their Trailbreaker. I, for one, really want their Blitzwing. I've passed on all the other offerings so that I could get them, including the Hoist from XTrans bots, which I think is really good. But I passed on them because I thought Fanstoys had it in the bag, and we haven't seen it. And there's been rumors of the Trailbreaker coming back into circulation, but rumors are rumors, my friends, until we actually see it. And Fanstoys catches a lot of grief for this stuff because we've never seen a third-party company do this before, right? Wrong. Where's XTransbot's Springer? Where's XTransbot's Galvatron? Where's XTransbot's Inferno? Now I can give you good reasons why all three of these never came as quickly as many people thought they would. That doesn't change the fact that they haven't come, so to speak. Where's MMC's Defensor? Where's Gigapower's Omega Supreme? Where's Make Toys Brainstorm, Highbrow, and 8-Face? And you might say, I think they're coming. And I might say, I hope they do. Which I do, for the most part. But it doesn't change the fact that they haven't come and they've been teased for years. It doesn't change the fact that it's the same infraction that nobody's holding to the same standard, and I don't understand why. Maybe it's because Defensor is one release, but it's actually 5 releases. That's 5 releases that we didn't get, and nobody is like kicking buckets around the room saying, where's my Defensor? It's inconsistent. It's a double standard. Let's move on to the next major Fanstoys complaint, a lack of being prolific, which I've stated many times here isn't the case. But because how their releases tend to come out with like shotgun blasts at one time, where 3 or 4 releases come inside of a quarter and then they're quiet for 2 quarters, people often think that they don't release stuff often. But I've done a rough estimate in my head of their releases from the beginning of 2018 until now. And I got news for you. 2018 was a generally slow year in Masterpiece scaled figures across the board. But I've done a rough estimate of their releases from 2018 to now and paired it against competitors. Now, when we talk about this, we're only going to talk about MP molds. I'll make a couple exceptions where I think it's necessary, but it's not really fair to judge a company that's doing all Legends, I feel like, with a company like Fanstoys or XTransbots that's doing mostly Masterpiece scale things. They're making 2 different types of products. So for the most part, we're going to keep it MP. We're going to make a couple exceptions here and there for the sake of conversation. How do you think they fared? I got news for you. They dropped 6 independent molds. RC, Mindwipe, Quietus, Hydra, Hoodlum, Road King. Now they also dropped a repaint of Jetfire, but we're not including repaints or retool. We're just talking about original molds. So I'm staying consistent. What's good for the goose becomes good for the gander. And speaking of the gander, so we'll start with Tecora. They released Cheetor, 2 Megatrons, Sunstreaker, Dinobot, and a new tape, which brings them in at 6, unless you want to count the movie stuff. But in regard to third-party companies, off the top of my head, the only ones I can think of are Zeta with 7. And if you want to get technical, some of those aerial bots are a lot of retooling, but we'll give it to them. XTransbots also tops them. They come in with 4 Stenicons, Cliff Jumper, Skids, and Cosmos. MMC released 4 original MP sculpts: Cliff Jumper, RC, Springer, Rumble, Frenzy. They also released the Drift mold and the Skylinks mold. Now those aren't MP, but even if we gave them credit, they're tied at 6. 7 if you count Skylinks as 2 releases, which would put them ahead of Fanstoys. DX9, not even close. Unique Toys, not even close. Fans Hobby, not even close. Planet X, not even close. Make Toys, not even in the conversation. Haven't dropped an original MP release in over a year and a half. Gigapower, they're neck and neck. Kidding, not even close. Bad Cube, not even close. So what do we have? We only have 4 companies really in the conversation. Fanstoys, Tecora, MMC, XTransbots. That's it in terms of being prolific, in terms of having consistent releases. But I don't hear people saying that about these other companies. Maybe Make Toys, maybe a little bit. But for the most part, I don't hear a whole lot of fluff or scuff or hubbub about these whole other companies. It's inconsistent and it's a double standard. Lastly, Fanstoys shows off 3 reveals. reveals. We did it if it teases the cord on it. And one of the big complaints coming out of the community or the fandom was the metallic paint, which I'm not sure I understand. So on one hand, Jetfire didn't have the metallic paint, and I remember people being upset that it didn't. I was one of them. I've been consistent. Then they released a Jetfire painted, and I remember people saying that the white wasn't metallic enough. And I agreed, because that's consistent. But then people started complaining about the metallic paint on these other figures. As if metallic paint is a deal breaker. As if it's a no-go. As if they have broken some golden rule. But my question is, where were those complaints here when everybody said they had great paint? Where were those complaints with DX9 Stunticons? Where were those complaints with XTrans Stunticons? Because I don't remember hearing it. 2 more Stunticons just dropped, and mostly the reaction has been positive. So where is the consistency? We got metallic paint on this Megatron down here in the legs, metallic fleck plastic on Soundwave, metallic paint on KFC's or XTransbot's Blaster. Where were the complaints? People complained that the paint chipped, but not at the metallic paint. People thought it looked good. Some people prefer the flat red. I'm not one of them. Everybody's favorite MP car? Is that metallic paint? Wait, where were the complaints with that, though? Where were the complaints for it? What is this? Is that some metallic paint I see? But I don't even see a whole lot of people complaining about that. Oh my God. You little poop nugget. Is that metallic paint on that Megatron? Where were the complaints? Oh, and don't get me started on that sea spray that's coming. I don't hear a whole lot of complaints. And look, this conversation isn't about whether or not metallic paint is good or bad. That's a subjective thing. That's up to you. This conversation is about being consistent. If it was good for this, then it should be good for that. Now, I'll bring up a couple of points that were made that I remember. T2RX6, my friend, has said, well, I like metallic paint on some stuff, but some stuff I don't feel like it makes as much sense. That works for me. Like if he's upset with Warpath having metallic paint because a tank shouldn't have metallic paint, I understand that. It doesn't bother me, but I can wrap my head around that. That works for me. I'm good with that. Ace Milo said he doesn't care about paint at all. So I'm good with that. He's consistent. That's consistent. If it's painted, that's cool. If it's not painted, that's cool too. It's just not a thing for him. Good. Makes sense. Hurricane BX brought up a point of Tecora having a lot of that too, and maybe it's more about throwing rocks at the throne. You know, whoever the top dogs are going to get the most criticism. That made sense to me too. So that's my basis for this. It's not whether or not you're a fan of the company. It's not whether or not, I don't care about any of that. Buy what you like, get what you like, etc., etc. My thing is this. Why are the criticisms so inconsistent? Why are the rules not being applied the same? I've never quite seen anything like it. Whatever reveal they bring has some criticism attached to it, I think from now on, that doesn't quite apply to other releases. Can you imagine a world where Fanstoys released a hound and the head didn't connect to the collarbone area? People would lose their mind. I'll be back next week with the XTransbot Stunticons. Alright? They're coming. There's a story to why it took so long. We'll talk about it. So to close it out, let me ask you a question if you've made it this far. What did you think of the mask through the video? I would go so far as to guess that many people have commented that the face on it is too small or that the mask is too tight, and I would understand that. You know why? Because we all crave consistency. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.